Do something real. Become a police officer in London's Met.
Trawling for new recruits is a constant process, but when senior officers get it wrong, it can have devastating consequences, as a report today underlined.
The report illustrates a farcical situation where hitting targets of recruits has meant that normal checks and balances haven't been done and allowed officers in that normally wouldn't have gotten through the vetting regime.
David Carrick and Cliff Mitchell both managed to get in. Both were rapists. Mitchell's vetting panel approved him, despite knowing he'd been accused in the past of raping a child.
What is it you're searching for?
Carrick is now serving 37 life sentences. In his case, vetting failed to uncover an allegation of domestic abuse.
It's not just David Carrick. There's a lot of officers out there that have not been vetted correctly. Vetting does take a long time. There's a delay always, months if not years. I can understand if they're rushing them through to try and get them done because there's a backlog, but not to the detriment of allowing officers in that clearly shouldn't.
According to the report, in 2019, the Met relaxed vetting to hire 4,500 new recruits. In that time, as many as 1,200 are thought to have failed normal checks. In a 10-year period, 131 recruits who weren't properly vetted committed crimes or misconduct.
We now know that people who shouldn't have been police officers were allowed to be police officers. People who shouldn't have been police officers went on to commit criminal offences.
You were there at the time.
What we had at the time was huge pressure from the then Conservative government to recruit record numbers.
TV presenter Jackie Adedeji, who accused a Metropolitan Police officer of sexual misconduct, isn't surprised by the report's findings.
I think it just makes people lose all hope. I mean, you look to the police to protect us, and you hear stories like this, and then you just think, I feel so unsafe. As a woman, you feel unsafe anyway, but then knowing that, if you needed help, you'd go to the police, and the police have predators in their ranks, you're like, well, where do I go to feel safe?
The Conservatives said the Met had been enthralled to diversity, equality and inclusion.
Everybody these days is ticking boxes to make sure that they've got 50% women, 50% men, and it goes on and on and on, and they've got to stop.
In a statement, Scotland Yard said, "We found that some historical practices did not meet the strengthened hiring and vetting standards we have today. We identified these issues ourselves and have fixed them quickly while making sure any risk to the public has been properly and effectively managed." But renewed public confidence in the Met will take more than reassuring words. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Well, joining us now to talk more on this is Stephen Roberts, former head of recruitment and training at the Met Police. Stephen Roberts, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's fair to point out that the period this review examines was not during your time in the role. But I want to ask you, first of all, what do you make of what you've heard today? Are you at all surprised?
Frankly, I'm not surprised. It's such a painful reminder to chief officers of just how important it is to resist political pressure to meet unrealistic targets. They will have warned the government about the risks of accelerating promotion beyond the capability of the organisation, but I'm afraid it looks as though they gave in to pressure to do things that raised the risk of recruiting totally unsuitable officers. Recruiting is not easy. It was a very high target, over and above the normal targets that you would have to simply replace people who retired in the normal course of events. But that is not an excuse. I'm afraid it's painful. The right remedies have been put in place now, thank goodness, but Londoners have paid the price for this.
Well, Stephen Roberts, this was in the statement released by the Met when this report came out today as well. They did point to this political pressure to push up recruitment. And of course, as you say, this will come as no comfort to the victims and to the survivors of these crimes. Decisions that were made, though, by individuals. And it seems like here that there are no individuals taking responsibility or being held to account for these decisions that had horrific consequences for people.
Yes, and I can well imagine that people who've become victims of corrupt police officers will be outraged by it. I have to say, not only retired officers but serving officers, many of whom I know, are equally outraged that this has been allowed to go wrong as badly as it has and has created so many needless victims. However, I think we have to understand the context of this and, frankly, understand the fact that most of the people who actually made these decisions have gone, both the chief officers and the politicians who exerted the pressure to make those dubious decisions.
As you say, the vast majority of officers will be outraged by what they've heard today. Sir Mark Rowley, that was not on his watch either. He says his priority now is cleaning up the Met, and all this report is all about transparency. But for Londoners watching tonight, how do you restore the confidence in police officers, in the police and the Met? How do we restore that trust?
I think that the transparency that's provided by this report is a starting point, but there is no quick fix to this. It will mean years and years of solid, well-managed recruitment, and it will also mean that we can't any longer rely on vetting at entry point to make sure that the officers who are recruited remain as good and suitable officers. You can't simply take it for granted that everything's going to be all right once you've recruited them. Vetting in itself is not a 100% guarantee, so you've got to keep
All
going.
right, and it is crucial. Stephen Roberts, thank you very much for talking to us this evening. Thank you.